The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden fields of Kepler-4 for 2b. Elder Theseus walked slowly through the grain crops, his forearms moving gently as he checked each plant. The Zelani had lived on this world for 300 years. It grew food, studied the stars, and lived in peace. War was something they read about in old books, not something they ever expected to face. Theseus stopped walking when he heard the sound. It came from the sky, like thunder, but wrong. Too steady, too loud. He looked up and saw them. Dark ships, bigger than anything the Zelani had ever built. They hung in the sky like storm clouds, blocking out the sun. The communicator on his belt buzzed. Elder Theseus came the voice of Kes, the communications officer. We have ships in orbit. They are not responding to our greeting messages. Theseus felt his heart sink. The Zelani had always feared this day might come. They had heard stories from other worlds, stories of a race called the Vorthok, who took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. Send the message to all settlements, Theseus said into his communicator. Tell everyone to stay calm, but be ready to hide. The ships above began to move. Theseus watched as smaller craft broke away from the big ones and headed down toward the planet. He could see fire coming from their undersides. They were not coming in peace. The first explosion happened near the northern city of Veltar. Even from 50 miles away, Theseus could see the orange flash and the black smoke rising into the sky. His communicator buzzed again and again. Came in from across the planet. Invaders were landing everywhere. They were burning crops and taking prisoners. The Zeus ran toward the communication center as fast as his old legs could carry him. The building was a simple dome made of local stone, but inside it held their most powerful transmitter. If they were going to call for help, they had to do it now. Kes was already at the controls when Theseus arrived. Her blue skin had turned pale. With fear, Elder, I have been trying to contact the Galactic Council, but something is blocking our signals. The invaders, this said. They must have devices that stop our messages from getting out. Another explosion, closer this time. Through the window, the Zeus could see one of the dark ships landing in their own valley. Strange beings in metal suits were climbing out. They were tall and covered in gray armor, carried weapons that glowed. With red energy, we need to try the emergency transmitter, this is said. The one we built for deep space research. Kes nodded and ran to another console. This transmitter was different. It was older, but more powerful. It could send messages much farther than their normal equipment. She began working on the controls with all 4 of her hands moving quickly. Outside, they could hear the sound of the invaders getting closer. Voices shouted in a language they did not understand. There was the sound of energy weapons firing. In Zelani, people screaming. I have it working, Kes said. But I can only send on the old emergency channels. I do not know if anyone will hear us. Send it everywhere, Theseus said. Send it to every frequency we know. Kes began typing the message. Theseus stood behind her and spoke into the transmitter. His voice was steady, but inside he was more afraid than he had ever been. This is Elder Theseus of the Zelani people on the world you call Kepler-4 to be. We are under attack by invaders who call themselves the Vorthok. They are destroying our cities and taking our people. We have no weapons. We have no military. We are farmers and teachers and builders. We have never hurt anyone? Another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Through the window, the Zeus could see the invaders setting fire to the grain storage buildings. Please, the Zeus continued into the transmitter. If anyone can hear this message, we need help. The Vorthok have told us we have 6 days to surrender. Completely, or they will destroy our entire world. Oh, we do not want to die. We do not want our children to become slaves. If there is anyone out there who believes that peaceful people should not be hurt by those who are stronger, please help us. Kes sent the message out on every frequency the transmitter could reach, shot out into space at the speed of light. Carrying their words to anyone who might be listening, the door to the communication center burst open. 3 Vorthok soldiers stood there, their red weapons pointed at Theseus and Kes. They were even bigger up close, nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin and small black eyes. One of them spoke in broken Zelani. You send messages to space? This is not allowed. Come with us now. Steese looked at Kess. She gave him a small nod. The message was sent. Now all they could do was hope that somewhere in the galaxy, someone had heard their call for help and would care enough to answer, as the Vorthok soldiers led them away. Thysis looked up at the sky one more time. Somewhere out there, traveling through the darkness between stars, his words were searching for ears that would listen and hearts that would respond. The Zilani had done all they could. Now their fate was in the hands of strangers they had never met on worlds they had never seen. The message flew through space, carrying with it the hope of an entire world. Lieutenant Martinez was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm went off. The sound echoed through the monitoring station on the edge of human space, making everyone stop what they were doing. Martinez had worked at Deep Space Station 7 for 2 years. Most days were quiet. Ships came and went. Traders sent messages. Nothing exciting ever happened. "What do we have?" asked Commander Roberts as she walked into the communications room. "Commander Martinez," said, pointing at his screen. It came in on the old emergency frequencies, very far away. Maybe 12 light years. Roberts leaned over his shoulder to look at the display. The signal was weak but clear. As they listened to the translation software work, their faces grew serious. "This is Elder Thises of the Zilani people on the world you call Kepler-4, for to be we, are under attack by invaders who call themselves the Vorthok." "Play it again," Roberts said quietly. They listened to the entire message twice. When it finished, Roberts was already reaching for her communicator. "Get me Admiral Chen immediately. Priority 1. 30 minutes later, Admiral Sarah Chen was standing in the war room of the Terran Defense Fleet headquarters. She was a small woman with gray hair, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Around the table sat the top military leaders of humanity. They had all heard the Zilani message. "What do we know about this Vorthok species?" Chen asked. General Park pulled up files on the main screen. "Not much, Admiral. We have heard rumors from some of the trading species. They say the Vorthok are conquerors. They take worlds by force and make slaves of the people they do not kill. And the Zilani," Peaceful Farmers Park continued. "They have traded with some of our merchant ships before. They grow food and study science. No military at all." Chen stared at the star map on the wall. Kepler 442b was marked with a red dot. It looked so small and far away. But somewhere on that world, people were dying because stronger beings had decided to hurt them. How long to get there? She asked Captain Torres, the fleet engineer, ran numbers on his computer. "With our fastest ships and the new jump drive technology, we could have a task force there in 4 days, the message said. "They have 6 days before the planet gets destroyed," Chen said. "That gives us 2 days to work with." "Admiral," said General Park, "we do not know how many ships the Vorthok have. We do not know their weapons or their technology. This could be very dangerous." Chen turned to face the room. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the steel. "In it, General, let me ask you something. If someone came to Earth and started killing our farmers and taking our children, what would you want other species to do?" "Help us," Park said without thinking. "Exactly. These Zilani people asked for help. They are not our enemies. They've done nothing wrong except grow food and live in peace. And now someone wants to kill them all." Chen walked to the star map and pointed at the red dot. "We are going to help them." She turned back to the group. "I want every available ship ready to go in 6 hours. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, fighters, everything we can move fast. Call it Task Force Retribution." The room began to buzz with activity. Officers started making calls and sending orders. But General Park raised his hand. "Admiral, the Galactic Council will not like this. We are supposed to ask permission before we interfere in other species conflicts." Chen's eyes grew cold. "The Galactic Council takes 3 months to decide what to have for lunch, General. These people will be dead by then." She paused. "Besides, this is not interference. This is answering a call for help." For the next 6 hours, the Terran Defense Fleet worked faster than it ever had before. Ships that were in repair were rushed back to service. Crews were called back from leave. Weapons were loaded and checked. The biggest rapid response fleet in human history was coming together. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the dreadnought Righteous Fury around her. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 destroyers were getting ready to jump to hyperspace. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city, but Chen hoped they would not need all of it. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are getting a signal from the Vorthok fleet at Kepler 4, for 2B. Put it on screen." The face that appeared was gray and ugly, with small black eyes and sharp teeth. The creature spoke in broken English. "I am Warlord Crux of the Vorthok hegemony. You will turn your ships around and leave this system. This world belongs to the Vorthok now." Chen stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. You will stop your attack on the Zilani people and leave their world immediately." Crux laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping. "Humans, we have heard of you. Small and weak. You should run home before we decide to take your worlds too. You've been warned, Warlord Crux. Withdraw your forces, or we will withdraw them for you." The alien's face grew angry. "Cannot stop the Vorthok. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will broadcast your destruction across the galaxy as a lesson to others." The communication ended. Chen looked around at her bridge crew. They were all staring at her, waiting for orders. "All ships," Chen said into her communicator, "prepare for hyperspace jump. Time to show these Vorthok what happens when you hurt innocent people." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing through the darkness toward a world they had never seen. To help people they had never met, because it was the right thing to do. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like an arrow shot from a bow. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury and watched the tactical display fill with red dots. The Vorthok had more ships than intelligence had guessed. "Count them," Chen ordered. 37 vessels, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Kim from the sensor station. 25 look like warships. The rest appear to be troop transports and supply ships." Chen nodded. The humans had 52 ships, but numbers were not everything. What about the planet? The main screen showed Kepler 4 for 2B, a blue and green world that should have been beautiful. Instead, they could see fires burning on the day side. Smoke covered large areas where cities used to be. Vorthok ships moved back and forth between the UHSS, between the planet and their fleet, carrying prisoners and stolen goods. "Sir," said the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was weak and full of static, but they could understand it. "This is Elder Theses of the Zilani. Are you the ones who answered our call for help?" Chen felt something tight in her chest loosen. "A little the Zilani were still alive," says Admiral Chen of the human fleet. "We received your message. We're here to help." "Thank you," Thesis said, and his voice was full of tears. "We thought no one would come. The Vorthok say they will. Kill everyone tomorrow if we do not surrender completely." "That will not happen," Chen said firmly. "Stay strong. This will be over soon." She cut the communication and turned to her weapons officer. "Major Brooks, what are we looking at for their fleet?" Brooks studied his displays. "Their ships are bigger than ours, Admiral, but they seem old. Heavy armor, but slow. Their weapons look like plasma cannons and missile systems. Nothing we have not seen before. Could send a message to all human ships. Battle formation Delta 7. We go in fast and hit them before they know what happened." The human fleet began to move. Ships spread out in a pattern that looked random, but was carefully planned. Each captain knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had practiced this formation 1,000 times. The Vorthok fleet was arranged around the planet like a big circle. Warlord Crux had put his biggest ships in front and kept the smaller ones safe behind them. It was the way the Vorthok always fought. Use the strong ships to break the enemy, then let the small ships finish them off. But the humans did not attack the way Crux expected. Instead of charging straight at the big ships, the human fleet split into 3 groups. One group went high above the plane of the planet. One group went low below it. The third group, led by Chen herself, went straight forward. What are they doing? Crux demanded from his flagship bridge. This makes no sense. His tactical officer studied the human ships. Sir, I think they are trying to surround us. Crux laughed. Let them try. Fire on the ships coming straight at us. Show these humans what Vorthok weapons can do. The Vorthok fleet opened fire. Bright plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space toward the human ships. But something strange happened. Most of the shots missed. The human ships were moving in ways that made them hard to hit. They twisted and turned like dancers, never staying in one place long enough for the Vorthok. Weapons to lock on? Then the humans fired back. What happened next made Crux's eyes go wide with shock. The human weapons were different from anything he had ever seen. Beams of pure energy sliced through space faster than thought. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves chased Vorthok ships and hit them exactly where they were weakest. And strangest of all, some human ships fired chunks of metal that moved so fast they went right through Vorthok armor like it was paper. The first Vorthok ship to die was a heavy cruiser on the left side of their formation. A human destroyer had put 3 energy beams right into its engine section. The cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Impossible, Crux shouted. Our armor should stop those weapons. The armor was not stopping anything. Human ships were moving through the Vorthok formation like sharks through a school of fish. Every shot they fired seemed to hit exactly where it would do the most damage. Vorthok ships were exploding or losing power faster than Crux could count them. Sir called his communications officer. The ships attacking our high position have broken through. They are heading for the troop transports. Crux turned to see human fighters, small and fast, racing toward his supply ships. The transports had no real weapons. They were sitting targets. Send the escort ships to protect them, Crux ordered. But when the escort ships moved to help the transports, the human ships attacking from below suddenly appeared and hit them from behind. It was like the humans could see everything that was happening at once and plan for it. Chen watched the battle from her command chair. Everything was going exactly as planned. The Vorthok fought like most military species did, with brute force and simple tactics. But humans had learned to fight differently. They used speed, coordination, and smart planning instead of just big guns. Admiral reported Major Brooks. We have destroyed 12 Vorthok ships and disabled 8 more. They are starting to retreat toward the planet. Do not let them get away, Chen said. Any ship that runs toward the planet might try to hurt. Civilians stop them. The human fleet pressed their attack. Vorthok ships that tried to escape found human destroyers waiting for them. Ships that tried to fight were overwhelmed by perfectly coordinated fire from multiple human vessels. Warlord Crux realized his fleet was being destroyed. In 30 minutes of fighting, he had lost more ships than in his last 10 conquests combined. These humans fought like nothing he had ever faced. Send a message to all ships, he ordered. Full retreat. Get us out of this system. But Admiral Chen had other plans. Warlord Crux watched his fleet fall apart around him. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now burning metal, drifting in space. The humans moved through his formation like they could read his mind before he made each decision. Sir, the Deathbringer is gone, shouted his tactical officer. The humans just cut it in half with some kind of beam weapon. Crux slammed his fist on his command chair. The Deathbringer was one of his most powerful ships. It had destroyed 3 planetary defense fleets in the last year. Now, it was space junk. How many ships do we have left? Crux demanded. 15. That can still fight, sir. 8 more are damaged but moving. From 37 ships to 23 in less than an hour, Crux had never lost so many ships so fast. These humans were dangerous in ways he had not expected, sir. Called another officer. Human fighters are attacking our landing parties on the planet. On the main screen, Crux could see small human ships diving through the atmosphere of Kepler 440b. They moved faster than anything the Vorthok had ever built. Green energy beams shot from their wings, hitting Vorthok ground vehicles and landing craft with perfect accuracy. Elder Aziz watched from his hiding place in the mountains as human fighters streaked across the sky above his burning village. The small ships moved like hunting birds, diving down to attack Vorthok soldiers, and then climbing back up into the clouds. "Look," called Kess, pointing at the sky. "They are not hitting any of our buildings." It was true. Now the human weapons were so accurate that they could hit a Vorthok vehicle without damaging the Zilani house next to it. The Zis had never seen anything like it. On the ground, Vorthok soldiers were running in panic. Their vehicles were exploding around them. Their heavy weapons could not hit the fast human ships. Some Vorthok were throwing down their guns and trying to surrender back in space. Warlord Crux was getting desperate. His fleet was beaten, but he still had one card to play. A card that had always worked before when enemies got too brave. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen. She looked calm and cold. Behind her, Crux could see human officers working quietly and efficiently. There was no panic, no shouting. These humans acted like destroying his fleet was just another day at work. "What do you want, Crux?" Chen asked. "You have fought well, Admiral," Crux said, trying to sound friendly. "This fight ends now. I still have 5,000 Vorthok soldiers on the planet's surface. If you do not stop your attack and leave this system, I will order them to kill every Zilani they can find." Chen's expression did not change. "You will do no such thing." Crux smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "You cannot stop me. Your ships are fast, but they cannot be everywhere at once. My soldiers will butcher these farmers like animals, and their blood will be on your hands." "Actually," Chen said, "your soldiers are currently running for their lives. Fighters have destroyed most of your ground vehicles and weapons. But let me make something very clear to you, Warlord Crux." Chen leaned forward, and her voice became deadly quiet. "If even one Zilani civilian dies because of your orders, I will personally make sure that you spend the rest of your very short life wishing you had never been born." "Duh," Crux laughed. "Empty threats. You are too far away too." His laughter stopped. When alarms started blaring all over his ship, "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir," called his tactical officer, his voice full of fear. "Human ships are surrounding us." It came out of nowhere. Crux looked at his displays and felt ice in his stomach. While he had been talking to Chen, human ships had moved into position all around his flagship. He was trapped in a cage of enemy vessels, all with their weapons pointed at him. "How did they get so close without us seeing them?" Crux whispered. "Chins." The voice came through the speakers. "We have something called stealth technology, Crux. Our ships can become invisible when we want them to. You never even knew we were there." On the planet below, the last Vorthok landing craft was trying to escape. But human fighters were waiting for it. Energy beams reached out and touched the craft's engines. It fell from the sky and crashed in an empty field, far from any Zilani settlements. "Sir," reported one of Chen's officers, "all Vorthok ground forces have been eliminated or captured. The planet is secure." Chen nodded but kept her eyes on Crux. "You have a choice to make, Warlord. You can order your remaining ships to surrender, and we will let you leave this system alive. Or you can keep fighting, and we will finish what you started." Crux looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. Outside, human ships waited like metal wolves around a cornered animal. "You think you have one," Crux said slowly. "But the Vorthok hegemony is vast. We have hundreds of ships, thousands of worlds. When they learn what happened here, they will come for your people. They will burn your cities and take your children." Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "Let them try. But first, they will have to deal with the fact that their mighty warlord Crux was beaten by a small human fleet in less than 2 hours." She paused. "How do you think that will look to all the worlds you have conquered? How do you think your own people will react when they learn that the great Vorthok war machine can be stopped?" Crux felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Not fear of dying in battle, but fear of what would happen when word of this defeat spread. The Vorthok ruled through strength and fear. If people learned they could be beaten, "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to leave this system and never come back," Chen said. "I want you to tell everyone you meet that the Zilani people are under human protection. I want you to remember that humanity has a very simple rule. We do not like bullies." June's image disappeared from the screen. Around Crux's flagship, The human ships began to move away, but they kept their weapons pointed at him. "Sir," asked his tactical officer, "what are your orders?" Crux looked at the planet below, where smoke was still rising from the battles. He thought about his ruined fleet and his dead soldiers. He thought about what the other Vorthok warlords would say when he returned home with such a defeat. "Signal all ships," he said finally. "We are leaving." As the surviving Vorthok ships limped away from Kepler-4 to B, Elderthis stood in his burned village and watched them go. Around him, human ships were landing, bringing medical supplies and food for his people. The nightmare was over. But across the galaxy, a new story was beginning to spread. 3 days after the battle, Elderthis walked through his village again. But this time everything was different. Where Vorthok soldiers had burned buildings, human engineers were helping Zilani workers rebuild them. Where crops had been destroyed, human ships had brought seeds and farming equipment. Where people had been hurt, human doctors were providing care. Thysis stopped at the edge of his grain field, where Admiral Chen was standing with some of her officers. She was watching human and Zilani workers planting new crops together. "Admiral," the Sis said, "I wanted to thank you again. Without your help, my people would all be dead or slaves by now." Chen turned to face him. Up close, Thesis could see that she looked tired. Leading a battle and then organizing relief efforts was hard work. "You do not need to thank us, Elder Thesis," Chen said. "We did what anyone should do when innocent people call for help." "But why?" Thesis asked. "You did not know us. We have nothing valuable to trade. You're just farmers and teachers. Why did humans risk their lives for strangers?" Chen was quiet for a moment. She looked at the workers in the field, humans and Zilani, working side by side to repair the damage. "Because someone asked for help," she said finally, "and we were able to give it. That is reason enough." Thaisis felt tears in his eyes. The old stories as people told, he had never heard of a species that would cross the galaxy just to help others. But here they were. "What happens now?" Thesis asked. "Now you rebuild," Chen said. "And if you want, humanity would be honored to call the Zilani our friends." While Chen and Thesis talked, something else was happening across the galaxy. The story of the battle at Kepler-4 for 2b was spreading faster than any ship could fly. Traders carried the news from system to system. Communications networks buzzed with reports of the human victory. On the water world of Aquanas Prime, the gentle Murhai people heard about humans who came to save farmers they had never met. The Murhai had lived in fear of aggressive species for centuries. Now they began sending messages toward human space, asking if they could meet these protectors. On the crystal cities of Vega 7, the scholarly Quellians read reports about human weapons that could destroy warships without harming nearby civilians. The Quellians had always believed that advanced technology should protect life, not destroy it. They wanted to learn more about these humans, who seemed to think the same way, but not everyone was. Happy about the news, in the dark fortress of Vorthok Prime, the High Command gathered to hear Warlord Crux's report. The Great Hall was filled with the most powerful Vorthok leaders, their gray faces twisted with anger. "You lost 30 ships to a human fleet half that size," demanded War Marshal Deck, the supreme leader of the Vorthok military. Crux stood before them, his armor scratched and dented from the battle. "Their technology is beyond anything we have seen. Ships can become invisible. Their weapons can cut through our armor like it is nothing." "Excuses," roared another warlord. "The Vorthok do not make excuses." "Then go fight them yourself," Crux said quietly. "Hey, see how long your ships last against human firepower?" But the damage was already done. Word of the defeat was spreading through Vorthok space. On worlds that the Vorthok had conquered, slave populations were beginning to whisper about the humans who had beaten their masters. Some were starting to rebel. On the mining world of Ketra 6, Vorthok overseers found that their workers were no longer afraid. When a human fleet could destroy Warlord Crux, maybe the Vorthok were not as powerful as they claimed to be. Similar uprisings began on dozens of worlds. The Vorthok military was stretched thin, trying to control rebellions across their empire. Ships that should have been conquering new worlds were instead trying to hold on to old ones. Back on Kepler-4 to be. 6 months had passed since the battle. The planet looked better than it had before the Vorthok attack. Human technology had helped the Zilani rebuild their cities and improve their farms. Crops were growing better than ever. Elder Theses stood in the same communication center where he had sent the desperate SOS message. But now the room was full of new equipment, gifts from humanity. The Zilani could now talk to species across the galaxy. "Elder," called Kess from her station, "we are receiving a message from the Terran Confederation.
Ow.
They want to know if we would like to join something called the Galactic Peace Initiative." Thesis smiled. "What is that, Kess?" read from her screen. "It says here that it is a group of species who work together to protect peaceful worlds from aggressive empires. The humans are starting it, but they want other species to help lead it." "Tell them yes," Thesis said without hesitation. "Tell them the Zilani people would be honored to help keep peace in the galaxy." The message went out, and within hours, responses came back from dozens of worlds. The Murhai wanted to join. Aquilians wanted to join. Species that had never spoken to each other before were coming together because they all had one thing in common. They believed that peaceful people should not have to fear those who were stronger. Admiral Chen received the news while she was on Earth, meeting with the Terran Council. The politicians had not been sure about her decision to help the Zilani without asking permission first. But now they were singing a different tune. "Admiral," said Counselor Williams, "we are getting requests for meetings from over 50 species. They all want to establish diplomatic relations with humanity." "And the aggressive species?" Chen asked. "They are staying far away from our space," Williams said with a smile. "It seems word has gotten around that humans do not tolerate bullies." Looked out the window at the ships in Earth's orbit. Some of them were human, but others belonged to the new allies who had come to help build the peace initiative. Zilani, food ships, Murhai medical vessels, Quellian research craft, all working together. The SOS that had gone out in desperation from a burning world had become something much bigger. It had become the first note in a new kind of galactic community, one based on helping instead of hurting, on protecting instead of conquering. And at the center of it all was a simple idea that humanity had carried to the stars. When someone asks for help and you can give it, you do. The galaxy would never be the same.